Hello and welcome back to another document deep dive. Now, when it comes to World War II, and generally military, there is a certain fascination for special forces, and of course in World War II there are some famous examples like the Rangers, the SAS, the first Special Service Force, and most of them are Western Allied ones. When it comes to Russian or German ones, um, some people say like the Waffen SS was like a special force, but I mean they had like line divisions, right? So it's not really the same thing there. Now, mostly when people talk about German special forces at World War II, there's two things that come up. First of all, or are these guys here, the ones who saved Mussolini under Otto Skorzeny, and then the Brandenburgers, of course, which in the early part of the war did do special forces type operations, although mostly by dressing in the enemy's uniform, which, as far as I know, is a war crime that you can get shot for. The same is, of course, true for another famous special force operation the Germans did, which was Operation Greif, which also was this kind of weird scheme to infiltrate behind American lines during the Ardennes offensive using captured uniforms and even some refurbished vehicles. That said, what people mean when they say special forces is often more, as I said, something like Rangers or SAS, which is kind of the closest to what in the modern day are called special forces, or spooks, like tactical guys with their knife between their teeth and decked out guns and so on. And this was not that much of a thing during World War II, but there's one kind of interesting type of unit that most people have not heard about, but that was actually fairly common on the German side, which is a so-called Jagdkommando. And these were units that were created within existing divisions as kind of elite units, mostly to hunt partisans behind their own lines. So the division would hold a piece of the front line, and for combat behind that front line, for example, against partisans, against allied parachutists, or against bypassed Russian forces in some cases on the Eastern Front, they created these Jagdkommandos in order to hunt them down. And these were because they had to fight without a lot of artillery or general heavy weapon support. These were often very well equipped light infantry forces that were the closest, I would argue, to standard special forces that the Germans had en masse, so to speak. So we will look at some documents relating to these Jagdkommandos. Now, this here is an example document by the 251st Infantry Division. And documents like this are actually fairly common because many infantry divisions, especially those in the east in 1942, got orders to create these Jagdkommandos. And this is how this looked like. So it says here, formation of a Jagdkommando for anti-partisan combat. The Germans called that Bandenbekämpfung, or fighting against bands or gangs. So basically they criminalized these and didn't call them partisans. In that case it was basically almost like an anti-criminal operation. So the 251st Division establishes a Jagdkommando for anti-partisan combat after the squadron's return. Approximate strength: 1 officer as a commander and approximately 4 squads. Approximate armament: so for each group at least 1 light machine gun, 1 to 2 Russian self-loading rifles with scope, 2 submachine guns, 2 flare guns, and then hand grenades and explosive ammunition. I think this means like explosive charges. So you can already see they were to be equipped for individual firepower. It doesn't mention the carbines here, so most of the group would still have the normal K98K, obviously. It just mentions the weapons that are maybe more out of the ordinary. It's interesting that these Russian captured guns are mentioned because in the future you will see that this was actually fairly common to equip them with additional Russian guns. It goes on here. The Jagdkommando's full winter mobility is of particular importance. Division 1B ensures preferential winter equipment and supplies. To this end, the Jagdkommando must be allocated the best skis and sleds. Accordingly, the most capable horses must be assigned to the Jagdkommandos as draft animals and pack animals. The personnel composition of the Jagdkommando, that's number 5, must take into account the specific nature of the task. Only the most resourceful and resilient soldiers are to be accepted into the Jagdkommando. The Jagdkommando is to be freed from ordinary duties to such an extent that it can devote itself entirely to training and education for its mission, utilizing all previous experience. Enclosed are the guidelines for Jagdkommandos issued by the OKH. The Pioneer Battalion 251 assigns 2 men with mine detectors to the Jagdkommando, and it says here they have to report on when they actually created those. Or it, right? So this is kind of what they were supposed to look like. You had 4 squads, probably at this point between 12 in the best case and 10 men, more realistically. Each with an SMG, Russian self-loading rifles, if possible scoped, submachine guns, in each squad 2 instead of 1, and 2 flare guns. So this was kind of the baseline in 1942 when this was first officially established. We will look at some examples of actual reported Jagdkommandos as they existed in the field, because there's, as you can imagine, a lot of variation here. Now, this document is a lot later. It's from the 29th of May 1944, and this is a corps level document from the 1st Army Corps. And all the divisions who had Jagdkommandos sent in reports about their details to the corps, and they compiled them in this document. So these are all the Jagdkommandos which in 1st Army Corps, which at this point I think was in the northern part of the Eastern Front. So, first of all, Jagd- and Begleitkommando, Escort Commando of the 1st Army Corps. So this is the corps level Jagdkommando. It says here who the leader is and the strength here. So officer, NCOs, men. And you already see one interesting thing here. Some of them are German, but some of them are Russian, and this varies between units depending on what kind of unit it is. But apparently a lot of Russians were serving in these Jagdkommandos against partisans as well. So this one was equipped actually with 3.7 centimeter pack as well, 5 light machine guns, 42, 20 German machine pistols, 12 Russian machine pistols, so PPSH probably, or PPDs, maybe other ones. 74 Ka-98Ks and 15 rifle grenades. So these would have been 5 squads, obviously, and probably 2 Russian squads, 3 German squads, or maybe a mix, hard to say. So the divisions under the corps also fashioned their own Jagdkommandos. So this is one of the 87th Infantry Divisions, Infantry Division, which apparently were 4 squads. So a platoon of 4 squads basically, and all German. And you had 30 carbines, 3 scoped carbines, 6 G43s, 4 MP44s, 3 light machine guns, 42. So one of the squads, maybe the one with the MP44s and G43s, was maybe like an assault squad that had no light machine gun. They also had 3 rifle grenade launchers. What's interesting here, 1 MS device. I'm kind of blanking. I'm not sure what they mean. Probably mine detecting device. I don't know why that's in here, because the others don't mention something like that. 24th Infantry Division, 3 scoped rifles, 3 grenade launchers, 9 German MPs, 1 Polish MP, which is really weird. So Polish machine pistol, probably not the kind of famous prototype Morse SMG, those were just too rare. Probably either Polish Thompsons or Polish Suomis that were captured from their police force, and then 3 German light machine guns and 1 German 80mm mortar. 205th Infantry Division does not have a Jagdkommando, lazy bastards. Next up is the 281st Security Division. Now these were generally tasked with rear area security, so they actually had 1 Jagdkommando for each battalion. Namely, so these were all German as well, and they are all fairly similar. There are some automatic rifles in there and some sniper rifles, the rest normal rifles, and then some MP in varying strength. The automatic rifles may or may not have been Russian ones. It doesn't say here, so you can see these are the 3 Jagdkommandos that this one security regiment had. Now the local commander also had a Jagdkommando under his personal command, and these were mostly Russians apparently. So they only had some people in the like higher ranks and 3 men, probably interpreters who were German, and the rest were Russians. And they had 2 Russian pucks and then a lot of Russian weapons here: heavy mortars, light mortars, heavy machine guns, light machine guns, submachine guns, rifles, and some German carbines as well. Now, the Landesschützen Battalion 275 was also under command of this corps. Now, a Landesschützen Battalion, so Landesschützen mostly were converted to Sicherungstroops. This is kind of something that is between a normal army unit and like a Volkssturm unit in terms of age, so like 40-year-olds, that kind of thing. They were all German in this case, but they were almost completely equipped with Russian weapons in this Jagdkommando, with the exception of 3 K98Ks with rifle grenade equipment apparently. And the same for the second Jagdkommando, so this Landesschützen Battalion actually had 2 of them. Now then it gets a bit interesting. So this is Jagdkommando UZ. This is an SS unit, a Waffen-SS unit. And they only had 1 German officer, the rest were all Russians. And as you can see, they were mostly equipped again with Russian weapons, with some German weapons in there, including a German flak, probably 20mm. So this is also, I think, among, maybe this one is a bit bigger, the local, yeah, these 2 are the biggest ones. And there's at least 1 report a bit earlier in this folder of this Jagdkommando in particular committing crimes behind the lines, sometimes while drunk. So there's that. Generally speaking, I think one reason why these Jagdkommandos do not get the kind of "oh cool" special forces attention is because obviously, due to them being involved in partisan warfare, they are also involved in a lot of massacres, crimes, and executions, that kind of thing. So all in all, the corps, as you can see, had 10 of them, and this is the overall strength, and actually most of these were Russian at this point. This is not the only Russian unit actually the Germans used for anti-partisan warfare. In France, they actually had a complete division, the 30th Waffengrenadier Division, the Russian number 2, as it was called, although it later was renamed to White Ruthenian number 2, which I think is like an old-timey term for Belarusians. I don't know, that it's probably some kind of Nazi race mumbo-jumbo. The thing is, these were stationed in France and were, for one thing, known for war crimes, but also for being completely undisciplined. There's actually really funny reports of them, like, just pissing in the face of their German handlers. Maybe at some point I will make a complete video about that. There's some funny stuff in there. But generally speaking, I wanted to look, because this is an equipment video, this is from November 1944, and some interesting stuff here in the equipment. So mostly they were equipped, no, I should say this is a battalion, 1 battalion in a Waffen Grenadier regiment inside this 30th division. They had K98Ks, bayonets and so on. Then in terms of pistols, you can see here some flare guns and so on, but they had quite a few in comparison on the rate to the carbines. They had quite a few submachine guns, but they were all English, so probably captured Sten guns, possibly actually captured from drops to partisans. So yeah, 120 Sten guns here. The light machine guns were all Russian, so DPs. And the heavy machine guns were all MG08 from World War I. So yeah, quite interesting unit. They did have 1 Panzerschrecke, apparently, and 10 Panzerfaust as well. Now, before you think that the Russians were the only ones collaborating, now this is actually a fairly old document from the 198th Infantry Division. So this is from July of 1942. And they don't use the word Jagdkommando, which may not have been established yet, actually. But they call it a Partisan Hunter platoon. And these were 1 officer, 3 NCOs, and 5 men, 1 interpreter, and 23 Ukrainian volunteers. So 7 in each squad. So each squad had 9 men. And then 2 truck drivers, also Ukrainians. And they say here that they plan to hire more Ukrainian volunteers in the near future. And it says here under armament, the platoon is equipped with Russian misspelled captured weapons, 3 submachine guns, and 22 semi-automatic rifles and hand grenades. So everybody here would have had an SVT captured once. And it says also here that they have German uniform, but without the identifying marks. But on the left upper arm, they have a blue and yellow armband with the sign "Im Dienste der deutschen Wehrmacht," which means under command or in service of the German Wehrmacht. So yeah, they have 2 captured LKWs, 2 captured trucks in order to drive around and hunt partisans. So that's another early kind of Jagdkommando. No light machine gun in this case. Lastly, we go back to late 1943, early 1944, which is when this report was filed, and this is from the 30th Luftwaffe Feld Division. So as you can see, not only Wehrmacht troops use these Jagdkommandos, but even Luftwaffe Field divisions, which were often of kind of questionable use, they even produced these. So they were quite common. And this is a general report about how they were used, which they sent to their parent unit, the 28th Army Corps. So it says here, activity report of the Jagdkommandos for the month of December, so that's December 1943. So, the division's Jagdkommandos deployed as part of combat groups south and north in the area west of the Leningrad-Dno railway up to the Luga-Pskov runway once again proved their worth in December. So this is around Leningrad. Says here, Jagdkommando 13A is subordinate to the 605th Security Regiment. In conjunction with assigned heavy weapons, the tenaciously defended towns of Podmozhye, Lyutjatino, Bologovo, Komorovo, and Krasovitsi were captured in vigorous attacks against numerically superior forces between December 1st and 8th, 1943. The Jagdkommando's successes included 90 enemy dead, a large number of wounded, and a rich booty of weapons and ammunition, with only 1 dead and 5 wounded. From December 19th, 1943 to December 25th, 1943, the villages of Krasovitsi, Pashitsi, Blyakino, Pustoshki, Yasishi, Kvoshko, and Malino were stormed and annihilated. So apparently they just burned all these villages down. 3 assault guns were assigned to this operation, as experience from recent battles had shown that the towns were heavily fortified and the bandits were equipped with anti-tank rifles. Losses included 50 enemy dead, 1 prisoner, several wounded, 1 MG-34, 1 light mortar, 1 submachine gun, and 8 rifles, compared to only 3 lightly wounded. Jagdkommando 13, down here, is subordinate to Kampfgruppe 130, Oredesh, within Northern Group from December 2nd, 1943. The following were deployed from December 2nd, 1943 to December 8th, 1943. The towns of Milovici, Neshashitsi, Dedino, and Pavshitsi were stormed in fierce shifting battles. Thanks to the skillful fighting of our soldiers, who allowed the bandits to approach at close range, all the bandits' counterattacks collapsed. At the end of the operation, 88 enemy casualties were counted, many wounded, and our own losses were 3 dead, 1 missing, and 4 wounded. And now it gets actually really interesting, because this is something that I have not seen ever before. As a token of appreciation, both detachments were equipped with 35 machine carabiner 43A. Now these are, as some who watched my earlier videos might know, this is the official designation for the MKB-42 Hähne prototype version of the MP43. So the open bolt prototype version. This is the first time I've ever heard about prototype weapons getting given out for good, like as a reward. This is actually weird. Now, this was after the tests were through. So at this point, the MP43 with the closed bolt was officially adopted and started to get officially shipped to units. So apparently they said, well, we can give these prototype weapons out to whoever. I don't know. It's kind of odd. This is the only time I've ever seen something like this. But it shows that these Jagdkommandos were actually fairly well equipped for close quarters, light infantry type battles like a special force would. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.